Yes, so today we will be discussing the philosophical perspectives. So, particularly, what are the philosophical conceptualizations of the self? So, there are a lot actually. No, the Greeks were there are a lot of men and women from ancient times who tried to conceptualize the self, and yes, so there are different perspectives of the self that can best be understood by revisiting its prime movers. So when we say prime movers, these are the ancient people, no, that tried to ask questions about the self. And we will be talking about them from ancient times. So particularly, we'll be talking about our daddy, no? Daddy atong lolo na si Socrates and the rest of the philosophers down to René Descartes, the first recognized modern philosopher in conceptualizing the self. So before Socrates, actually, there are other Greeks, namely Pyramides, Pythagoras, who ask questions, but not about the self. Rather, they ask questions about the world. So what does it consist of? What matter does it composed of? They ask questions such as, how is the world tied up as one despite its diversity? And then came Socrates. He finally asked questions about the self. He was the first ever person on that. At the time, he was the first one who asked internally. So his focus rather is not sa world but sa iyang self. So he was the first ever to visit the problems of the self. He was also the first to engage in a systematic questioning about the self. So they call that the Socratic method of questioning. You don't need to learn that much about that. It's sort of a questioning style to come up to the real question. Real answer. So he also coined this very famous line, no, that the unexamined life is not worth living. So if you're not introspective, you don't try to kada bitaw mag think maayo kung sa mo ganahan, sa mo di ganahan, sa kaklaseng na pagkatao. He thinks that if you're not that type of person to ask questions about yourself, then you have a life that is not worth living. O, diba? So try asking questions about yourself na. And what do you like? What don't you like? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are your traumas? What are your biases? So, mo na siya ang giingon ni Socrates. So, he also said that most humans were not fully aware of who they were and the virtues they were supposed to attain to preserve their souls. So, a lot of us are going through life not really knowing what we like, and we have jobs that we don't like, we partner with people we don't love, and that's what Socrates says, no? That we're sacrificing our souls in return. Okay, so this is again, time and time again, how I told you how this is very beneficial for you because you're in the period of questioning yourself, you're in the period of discovering parts of yourself, and it will be really helpful to know concepts, theories, maybe explanations of your behaviors, so that it will help you in deciding for your future. Para dili ta mo fall in love sa mga wrong people, diba? Or dili ta magtrabaho og mga di nato ganahan. So ingana na siya. Okay? So next, so here it is. So the worst thing, this is still in connection to what I said a while ago now, that the worst thing that anyone can do to themselves is to live but die inside. Okay? A lot of us are just going through life, surviving, but not really living it. So I have a meme here, no? On the outside, I skirt, but on the inside, I hurt. Okay, so yeah, so it's really important that we will be able to identify and discover ourselves. So we're going to go, we're now in the part where I will be discussing about the theory of Socrates. So for him, the human person is dualistic daw. So dua meaning duha ka buok, okay? These two aspects of the self consist of the body this one, and the soul. So the soul daw, the soul is perfect and permanent, but the body is impermanent and also imperfect. So very simple mo rin ang theory ni Socrates, that there's two parts of the self, the body and the soul. The body is perfect and permanent. I mean, the body is imperfect and impermanent, and the soul is perfect and permanent. Okay. And come Plato. Plato, sa una nyo pagkuan, no? Si Plato is the student of Socrates. Of course, as a student, may agree po siya siyang master, no? Or yung teacher, he supported Socrates. I agree with you, Socrates. But ang iya lang different lang sa iyang conceptualization self is that it is composed of the three components. Ang soul. So, iyang gi-extend. Ang Socrates, iyang gi-divide into two, no? The body and the soul. Si Plato, iyang gi-divide into three ang soul na aspect sa self, which is the rational aspect, the spirited aspect, and the appetitive aspect. Of course, the rational aspect is the mind, or the thinking aspect, no? The aspect where there we can observe logic and reasoning. The spirited aspect composed of things such as the feelings, the moods, emotions, and the appetitive aspect are those that are the basic drives of human. For example, sleeping, eating, or having sex. Those are drives as well. According to Plato, no, that this part, no, maning naas siya sa taas because kani siya dapat, the rational aspect should be the prime mover. So siya, not really prime mover, no, siya ang leader kumbaga sa all aspects. So according to Plato, we should always use our logic, our reasoning, and not let this two drive our decisions, no? So for example, if lagot ka ayuta, Socrates reminds us to set it aside because emotions are fleeting, no? And after nakalma na ka, that's when you decide. Ana nga sila. Sabi nga nila na do not decide when you're too happy or you are too angry. So make sure that you make decisions na kalmado ka. Okay? Especially very important decisions in life, no? We should always use our heads when we decide. So that's the reminder or the theory of Plato. So if you have questions, you can just type in the comments in this Loom video. It's down below. Wow, marama kong nagkuan YouTuber. Okay. Now we move on to Augustine. So the following two are already kuan na siya, na siya gi-embed na Catholic aspect. Not really Catholic, na Christian conceptualizations with the theories that the first two provided. So according to so Augustine actually agrees with Plato and Socrates. No, there are two, but he infused it with Christianity. Okay, iyang gi butangag murag twist. There's a twist, mga ma'am sir, about Christian doctrines. No, iyang gingon is that the body is bound to die on earth, and the soul is always anticipating to live eternally with God. So, mao na ang goal sa soul, to live in communion with God. So, the goal of every human person is to attain this communion and bliss with the divine by living his life on earth in virtue. So, as you can see, people, virtue is always brought up, no, from Socrates to Augustine. So, if you're interested, actually, no, there's a virtue ethics that the philosophy subject discusses. Maybe you can watch that or read about that, but that's not part of our discussion, so we will move on to the next. Okay, so Thomas Aquinas, so he is still marag naagya po ni siya religious aspect, no, but yung difference lang, no, is he named the the two aspects into highly and morphe, sorry. Okay, so highly is the common stuff that makes up everything in the universe, and then morphe is the essence of a substance or a thing. And in other terms, no, if you try to connect all the concepts that I've discussed na, morphe daw is sort of like the soul, and then ang highly is the body, but iya lang i-change ang terms, no? According to Aquinas, that the morphe or the soul is what makes us separate from all the living creatures. So we have the morphe that makes us distinct from pigs, from dogs, from cows, and mo na siya. And it's what makes us humans daw. And mo pa na ingon nila na supreme being daw ta kinatay soul. So, well, these theories, dili na to ni matest, no? It's not really falsifiable, so we cannot really guarantee if they're true. No, we're just discussing concepts kay kanang basic future kuan mo, philosophers, diba? Okay. And now we go to the modern conceptualization. So, si René Descartes ang nag-father sa modern philosophy. So, if mo kailanin niya, magtuo mo na part ni siya sa kanang banda no, na nagkatakantang. Wa mo kaila na mo. Si René Descartes, dahil niya siya, ha? Yung dumi, ang iyang mata, iyang buhok, na iyang now. Okay? So, he is the father of modern philosophy. So, he conceived of human person as having a body and mind. Same yapon, magipon siya ni wala kay siya ni drive away sa theory no, for him. The self is still dualistic in nature. And for him, no, anything in the world can be doubted. The existence of the world can be doubted, but you can assure that the self truly exists. How did he explain this in a way? No, he said, when you doubt that you're existing, no, when you doubt about your existence, nag-exist ba yun eko? Meaning to say, na ay existence of the doubting self. So, na-exist imong self na ni-question na nag-exist ka. Thus, there is the existence of a doubting self. There is an existence of the self. Am I getting it right? Huh? Again, ha? Nag-doubt ka sa imong self, no? Nag-exist ba ko? Okay, nag-doubt ka na nag-exist ka. The fact na nag-doubt ka, the ana siya na ay existing doubting self. Therefore, the self exists. So, maorigi na siya. Yeah. I think, therefore I am. Nag-doubt ka na ay existence sa doubting self, therefore, there is an existence of the self. Cogito ergo sum. Ana. So, he said that the only thing that one cannot doubt is the existence of self. Nag-exist yun ang self. Because katong akong explanation a while ago. So, he said there are two distinct entities for the self. We have the cogito, or the thing that thinks, and extensa, the extension of the mind, which is the body. So, what's may difference nila? Dualistic pa rin, but he's no longer talking about the soul. Instead, he's talking about the mind. Okay? He said cogito, the thing that thinks. So, asa may siguro close ani niya na aspect, no? If atong connect. Kang Plato, kay naman siya atong rational aspects sa soul, the thinking thing. So, mo na siya, connected siya. But, katong kang Socrates, soul man niya ha. Katong kang kuan, highly soul, gihapon niya ha. Nga na siya. So, medyo close siya sa theory ni Plato. So, for Descartes daw, the body is nothing else but a machine that is attached to the mind. So, para niya, wala rin gamit ang body. Ang importante is ang cogito or ang ato ang mind. Because modo na ang nag-drive nato as a person. And then, we move on to David Hume. So, David Hume is an empiricist. What do we mean to say when we say empiricist or empiricism? Empiricism, class, is actually the school of thought that adopts the idea that knowledge is only possible if it is sensed and experienced. Okay? So, if dili ka ka-touch, That's not possible. That's not existing. More ang empiricism, no? For example, I touch this jug, no? I can feel it. I can feel na medyo cold siya. I can see na orange siya. Now, once I've had those input, no, it's sensed. No, when you say sense, our senses, vision, touch, what else? Smelling, no. If we can have those experiences, if we have those senses, then this is possible. The knowledge is possible, no. But in contrast to other theories, no, the self, the mind, katila mga gipaingon, cannot be touched, right? Cannot be sensed. So, para siya ang ni-deviate actually. No? For him, that's not the conceptualization of self. Rather, the self is nothing else but a bundle of impressions. Okay, what are impressions? Later on, yes, I will discuss to you about impressions. Okay, impressions. Water break. Impressions, again, from an empiricist point of view, is those things or stimulus na atong mahikap, makitaan, masimhot, matilawan, sa pa, mabati. Okay? So these are senses of the eyes, the ears, the nose, the mouth, tanan na ato ang ma-sense. Those are impressions. Now, unsa may meaning niya na the bundle of impressions. For example, right now, I want you to look around right now. No? Say naa sa imong paligid, pasigig tanaw mo skili na imong iro, no? Tanaw nimo pikas na imong kuan, mga nilabhang wa pagipilo. Yan. So, using that, no, imong nakitaan around your kanang palibot and imong na smell, imong na touch, maura daw na ang conceptualization sa self, no? Iyang atumabati, maura gyud daw na. For example, if mo touch mo init na takuri, no? Kisang bright mo touch og init na takuri, pero ato lang nang himuon na example. Ni touch si Marites og init na takuri, no? Bright kay ni touch og init na takuri. Ang kainit sa takuri niyang na touch, that is an impression, okay? Kay iya man jud siyang na touch, okay? If si Mike naglingkod sa kilid kay balik namang class, face to face class naman daw, hopefully, no, naglingkod sa kilid sa iyang crush, no, na si Samantha, no. Tanaw siya ni Samantha, iyang giana ay iyang gihikap ang braso unsay nasud sa utok ni Mike, murag tala nya. Nakuyawan si Samantha no paghikap ni Mike sa arm sa diri ni Samantha, ang iyang na-touch na humok na braso, arm atong istoryaan, mao na siya ang impression. Okay? Hala, medyo init-init lagi si Samantha. Nya, medyo kanang kuan nya man ato kanang naka-feel siya na medyo humok ang init og humok, that is an impression. But if si Mike is only sitting there imagining what it will feel like if he touched Samantha sa arms, ang iyang imagination idea na siya. Okay, so that's the only difference. Ang impression imo jud siyang ma-sense, imo siyang ma-experience, but ang idea imo ra siyang imagine. Okay? So, for example, if gi-imagine nimo na-crush ang crush nimo, ideas na siya, di na siya impression. Okay? So, na siya. So, mag-careful sa taani, class, kay sometimes we think that we love someone when in fact we just like the idea of having a boyfriend or a girlfriend. We like the idea of love, but not the person itself. So, you be careful. Okay? So, yeah, mo to siya. So, ana siya, self is a bundle of perceptions which succeed each other, napanisumpay, which succeed each other in flux and flow. So mag-wave na, musud-sud na daw, mugawas, mugawas. Mora gyud daw na ang self. And actually, the next theorist would contrast this one, which is Immanuel Kant. Ay siya, by Hume, agree ko nimo by, orbs, agree ko nimo orbs. But, naa siya difference. Ang impressions, di rin na siya basta musod gawas. Naatay gitawag na organizing principle. And we have this so-called the mind, that organizes this. And one of its apparatus is the self. So, ang mind daw, mura na siya office na dagan na siyang apparatuses, dagan na siyang functions. And also dito ang self which will organize thoughts about our own being. So, i-organize niya panalitan. Pagbata na ako, noon ako impression, naka-feel ko, gikasabaan ko, pagbata na ako, gihadlok ko sa ko mama og ud para mukaon ko, iya kong hatagan og ud sa baso, anak. That is an impression. For example, na kakuan ko, nakakita kog od, usa kong gibati, wa ko nahadlok sa od. So, kana siya, mo collect daw ang mind, ang self, iyan ang i-organize into conceptualizing what we are as a being and as a person. And it does not mean that if i-organize na siya, mauna jud ka, Actually, we're growing, we're learning, change is the only constant thing. So, mag-usab-usab yun na every new information that comes. But, for example, if wala yun na siya nausab na information na itanong ni mugod, di jud ka mahadlok. And then, you would grow up and into thinking na, maybe I'm the type of person na dili lang just scared of insects. Gana. So, that's for Immanuel Kant, okay? Now, the self is the seat of knowledge acquisition among human persons. Then we move on to Gilbert Ryle. Okay? So, siya, si Tito, medyo kuan kay si Tito, medyo galit sa world. So, si Gilbert Ryle, kani si Tito Gilbert, he blatantly denies the concept of an internal, kanang non-physical self. Diba? Nag-ingon man to sila, the previous thinkers, even according to kanang Descartes, that the mind is part of the self. The rest of them conceptualizes highly the soul. For him, na siya na pataka man ni sila na dili man na tinuod na naay internal non-physical self. Para niya behavior ra gyud sa tao ang mo define sa self, What matters for Ryle is the behavior that the person manifests in his day-to-day life. So he suggests that the self is not an entity one can locate and analyze, but a convenient name that people use to refer to all behaviors people make. Example. Pag elementary ninyo, naka-recall mo how you act as an activity is given to you. So, for example, when you're in elementary, you're used to sanay activity. Weeks ahead, maghinay-hinay na ka. Imong itchong. So, for this day, kanisa na subject akong ilihok. This day, kanisunod. This day, kanina lang. Kaya medyo sayon man siya, layo-layo pag deadline. Nga na kapag elementary o pag high school, ang deadline na months pa, imong hinay-hinayag sugod. So, you're really anana. So, kanang behavior nimo na hinay-hinay og sugod from elementary down to high school, senior high school, and then college. If you keep on repeating that and you summarize the behavior into one, that is how you define yourself daw. So, that is what makes you. So, if you're the type daw na kanang magsigig chunk, maybe you're the type of person na hilig og planning ahead. Okay? So, ganahan ka na to-do list, na kay kanang you read ahead para dili ka mabughat o dagang kay buhatunon. At the last part, in contrast, if you're the type of student, pag elementary nimo, wala ka kaban kung chill maki ko pag elementary na ko mo mama day answers mo mga modules maday chill day ka. Pag high school nimo, ang deadline na for Friday sa buntag jud ka naghimo. Okay? So those behaviors from elementary down to your high school and then college, kanang behaviors na imo na siyang i-collect into defining who you are. So maybe you define yourself as procrastinator, no? Maybe dili siguro kay ka academically inclined but you're good in sports, no? So gana na siya, okay? So what I'm giving here as an example is very simplistic in a way, no? Very simple siya, but there are a lot of behaviors, no? And sometimes these things can be kana bitawng dili siya, incongruent siya sometimes. Sometimes we define ourselves na ganahan kayo mo plano to-do list, ganahan dyan mag-chunk mo, next year pang deadline, gilihok na yun on the next day. But sometimes, dili mo lihok, no? Sometimes, nag-procrastinate, naggubot, naabot sa last part, no? Sometimes, we have behaviors that way. And it does not mean that these two behaviors cannot coexist. Again, they come, and then they change. If new behavior comes, then our conceptualizations change, okay? But more on that later, no? Theories about the self and such. Now, there is always a particular theory for a particular concept. So, more na yun na siya itong i-focus. For Ryle, behavior siya. Kay matouch siya, ma-observe, ana. So, mo na siya kang Ryle. And now, we move on to Merleau-Ponty. Okay, so he is a phenomenologist. So, the mind-body bifurcation is a futile endeavor siya. Kasi sayang lagin mo sa inyong oras na inyong pag-separate sa self into two. No, they're two intertwined. Ana si Lolo Marlo na siya. Grabe ka na sila ka-intertwined in a sense na dili na siya ma-separate. We don't know where the mind ends and the body starts. So, muna siya iyang kuan, no? He dismisses. He was against the Cartesian dualism ni René Descartes, no? For him, the living body, his thoughts, and experiences are all one. Okay. And we are now in the last part of our discussion. So this is your activity actually, no? Again, I told you do not worry about the deadlines. As long as wala ko ka-check sa tanang mga papers, you're good to go. Wala pa gid na siya minus. So as I've explained time and time again, for example, if the deadline is next week, wala pa ko ka-check ana, even if next grabe sa next if for example April last week na kasi April ni send ana, and then pag the next day dayon namilagruhan ka the next day kay naka-check na ko sa tanan, wala kay deductions, okay? But since the deadline is also very lenient, and it's months na, no? Months, of course, nag-catch up ko sa akong mga checkan na, no? Months ang deadline, ang span of time for you to answer maybe mga one paragraph, no? I will no longer accept those who are late, no matter the reason, okay? We need to have, what do you call this? We need to have a guideline to follow, no? We cannot basta-basta na, miss, sorry miss, kaya nga ni miss, no? Kakuan, nagbantay ko sa kong igsuon, o ko kabantay sa deadline, no? Wow, 1 month ang deadline, wag yun siya kabantay. So, mag-careful ta class, no? These type of students, maklaro man siya jud na kanami abuse na gyud mo. And I'm the type of person that can easily detect those stories na tinuod og dili, okay? So, again, deadline is very lenient. So, if I've already checked it after a month, no, that it was given to you, your output will no longer be accepted, okay? So, maara to siya. So, hopefully, you've learned something today. Yeah, don't forget to answer your next activity. Thank you, and always have fun in learning.